Welcome to Podjunction Podcast. This is a show for podcasters who are using their podcast to grow their business. I'm Sadaf, Beynon, and beside me is the most excellent Matt Edmundson.
Most excellent. Love that. Keeping that. Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Most excellent. Showing my age now. Did you ever watch that show?
No.
You never seen the movie Bill and Ted?
No, I tried. I couldn't do it.
Dude. Why not?
No,
Okay.
I just couldn't.
Sorry about that.
Sorry,
ladies and
guys.
gentlemen. You've just half the listeners have just gone, yeah, I'm not listening to Sadaf
Oh, no,
now.
come back. In this episode, you're going to learn. In the next 4 episodes, we've got insights from John Roman, who is
A legend.
the co-host of ASOM Pod.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first of the 4 mini-series that we're doing. So in this particular episode, you're going to learn how you can use different perspectives
Yep.
to create engaging content.
Yep.
You're going to learn how existing conversations can also be used as valuable content on your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, how the commitment to producing content consistently really sets you apart in the podcasting world.
Very good. And it has to be said that John is an absolute legend.
Yes.
I saw John a few weeks ago.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, Sub Summit 2024. Met John there. What a legend he is. We hooked up at the, what did I say? The Gas Monkey, which is a car place in Dallas, outside of Dallas, Texas. Apparently it's a TV show. Not that I know, because I've definitely not seen it. But saw John there over some great food. So I'm looking forward to this because John is a legend. And I watched them do a live recording of the ASOM podcast at Sub
Oh,
Summit.
did you?
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, cool.
4 guys interacting really well. It's hard enough when there's just 2 of us.
It's a true story.
Yeah, it's a very true story. But they've got 4, so you kind of like, wow, guys, well done. So, yeah, really, really fascinating. So, yeah, it's cool. So, are we going to run VT now?
Yes, we are.
Run VT. So, here is John Roman. Sadaf and I will be back after this.
John, I know you've been a guest on so many podcasts. And you very recently, obviously, launched your own ASOM Pod. Tell us about the inspiration behind that.
Sure. So, I have been on a lot of other people's podcasts, probably a few dozen at this point. And, one of the reasons I do them, I enjoy, talking through things that are working or not working for us in hopes that there's that aha moment for, someone listening where they're like, oh, I can try this, or, oh, I was going to do that, but I know about this now, so I'm not going to.
Mm-hmm.
And about a year ago, I had a weekly call with our development agency that we use. And the call was, at first going through like whatever projects we're working on, but then it turned into this, like, just talking about what's working, what's not working. And we realized there was probably a lot of like takeaways for anybody listening to us. So we're going to start recording this. We're meeting anyway. Let's just record it, see if there's anything good, and just drop it on social, in just short, digestible, 1 minute, 2 minute clips. And we did that for a few months, and we were like, man, something's missing. Like, we're trying to think through what's missing. And, he runs an agency and I run a brand, and we're like, there's, maybe there's other perspectives we're not thinking of. So I reached out to a gentleman named Jimmy Kim, who runs an email platform called SendLane. And he could write a master class on social. Like they're not their entire model, but they literally just build pipeline of potential prospects through social, where he's just offering value, education, best practices in the email arena. And that in turn becomes this funnel for the SendLane company. So reached out to him and said, hey, I have this wild idea. We have an agency guy. I'm running a brand. You run software that's slightly different. So you probably have a slightly different lens on all this stuff in e-com. And he was like, man, I had the same idea, and like showed me like notes. Like we were both like having the same thought. Mm-hmm. He then found, right, we need one more, a marketer. And he found a marketer that was the perfect fit. and that was it. So awesome ASOM, agency, SaaS, operator, marketer. So it's 4 unique perspectives, and we were off to the races. A little different. We film it in person, which is quite unusual in a post COVID world. And yeah, that's it.
That's very cool. So, I love how you've got all 4 of you there with the different perspectives speaking into, one idea or thought. I think that's a very cool, well-rounded conversation, I'd expect.
That's the hope. That's the hope that it provides this full picture of topics in ecom.
Yeah. So how do you guys how do you manage that? Because I mean, how often do you record? How do you like the logistics around it?
So we're not doing ourselves any favors. So I live in Atlanta.
Okay.
Jimmy lives in Austin. Amir lives in Chicago, and Brian lives in the Northeast. He lives in Connecticut.
Oh wow.
So we're geographically spread. So last month we filmed the first 4 episodes.
Okay.
I have a newborn, so I'm not able to travel, or I wasn't able to travel. So everybody flew in to Atlanta. We had dinner on a Thursday night, and all day Friday we filmed the 4 episodes. Next month there's a conference, Sub Summit, that all of us are actually going to.
Oh, cool.
So we're just 2 birds, 1 stone. We're all going to be in this place for 3 days. So we grabbed a studio for a few hours on Monday and a couple hours on Tuesday. We'll knock out 4 more episodes, and then we're doing at the conference we're doing a live episode. So we'll have 5 after next week to add to the pipeline, and after that it'll just be once a month. 1 day somewhere. So they came to Atlanta. So I believe in July we're going to go up to Connecticut, and Brian will host us. So it's quite a time commitment, going out of town.
If that got you curious and you want to catch the full episode, be sure to subscribe to the show. We've got plenty more great conversations coming up.
Well, welcome back. Sadaf and I just having a little chat amongst ourselves as we're listening to that little interlude. So, John Roman, awesome podcast, the ASOM podcast. It's quite a new podcast, what those guys do. And like I said, at Sub Summit, I got to watch them do the live recording. And they've actually got some really interesting chemistry, those 4 guys, between them. And it's interesting because I know if I did a podcast with 4 of my friends, it would be like a competition to see who could talk the most. But that's not how the way they've structured it, I think, and the way they sort of handle that is quite clever. But the thing I love about what they're talking about here and what John's talking about is they started to do something and it didn't feel quite right, like they were missing something. And so they've ended up with 4 of them, 4 different specialties, 4 different guys, 4 different, sort of viewpoints. And I really like that because actually it takes a lot of the pressure off in terms of content production. It gives you 4 people who are promoting the podcast, all on their own social media channels, all to their own networks. And I just thought it's such a smart idea. I'm surprised there aren't more people doing it in many ways. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I love what those guys are doing. Love the whole idea of building out a team that you can host the podcast with. It does have its troubles,
Yes.
as they talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love how, sorry.
Let's get your microphone set up there.
Yeah, I love how they've got the four different perspectives.
Yeah.
On a given topic, and they bring in. I think what's nice about it, not that I haven't watched all of their episodes, but it's not that they're disagreeing. It's just that they're adding more to the conversation.
Yeah, they're building it out.
Yeah.
So this is what this means for us in marketing. This is what it means for us in SaaS, and they're building out and having a conversation around it.
And for someone in the e-commerce space, that would be such a valuable conversation to listen to.
Yeah, it's a really great podcast what they're doing. I'd be interested to see how long they keep it going, because they've started off really strong, in terms of the promotion. They promoted a lot of Sub Summit and getting the listeners onto the show, which I think is great. But I think they're going to have to monetize that pretty soon to cover the costs of travel.
Yeah.
Or there has to be some benefits that justify the cost of travel. To give up, in effect, it's going to be 2 days a month. By the time you've flown somewhere, done a day's recording and flown back, that's going to be at least 2 days.
Yeah.
And so to give up that time, I think that's going to be the big thing. So if you're thinking about doing one of these podcasts, there are things to be aware of. One is going to be the time, especially if you're doing it in person.
Yeah.
You could, in theory, say, well, we're going to do a 4-person podcast, but do it over like Riverside or something like that, right? And record 4 remotely. So you've not got the travel issue. There is something, and that's easier and to arrange and sort out, and a lot more cost effective, and maybe a place where you need to start. But having done podcasts where, say, you and I have done it remotely, we've co-hosted remotely, and then when we do it like this in a studio where we're next to each other, it's always much better when you're in person.
Yeah, for sure.
Always much better. That's not to say it has to be done this way, because we interview guests remotely.
We do.
On a lot of our podcasts. Like that was a remote interview with John Roman then. So it's not to say you can't do it remotely, but I think if you're going to have, especially if it relies on banter, which I rely on a lot. I like banter. I think banter and stuff like that tends to be much better in person. And so there's a big decision to make there, isn't there? But this whole idea of the 4-person podcast or the 3-person podcast, the panel kind of conversation, I think is such a good idea. Part of me wishes that when we did e-commerce podcast all those years ago, I should have gone and found 3 other people to do that with, because you share the burden then. And so maybe that's what I should do with EP. Maybe just go and get 3 other people to say, come, maybe not. Okay, no. But no, I think it's really cool. Have you heard the podcast, the Awesome Podcast?
I listened to the first one, and I found it quite entertaining, actually, and informative as well. But I haven't listened to any of the ones that came after that. And I think the ones they recorded in Sub Summit, during Sub Summit, would have been for the next month, because they recorded, I think, early June. For all of June, and then And
why did you find it informative and helpful?
I think because, I don't have an e-commerce business, but I think what they were talking about was valuable for someone who would have a business. So it wasn't just, 4 guys just having fun and chatting away and you're just listening in. It was also like if you had an e-commerce business, that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, totally. And I think because there's 4 people involved, there's the back and forth. You're not getting bored, are you?
Yeah.
So like I've noticed when we do interviews with people, sometimes you'll do interviews with people and it's if you do it with someone that's done podcasting quite a bit, it tends to be more conversational. A bit like this, we go back and forth. But there are sometimes, like recently, I won't say who, I've recorded a podcast and the person I was recording with likes to talk. Oh, yes. And it was hard to get any, a bit like myself really, hard to get any words in. And so with 4 people, that becomes much more difficult to do. And so therefore, as a listener, it can be a lot more engaging because there's not one sole voice. And because it's constantly switching from one to the next, it kind of keeps your attention longer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
So, the 4-person podcast. Like I say, I saw it live, thought it was great. I think it's a great possibility. I really do. And I think if you're starting out in podcasting or you're struggling with it, then thinking about who else you can get involved is a really interesting idea. And do check out John's podcast because you'll pick up some really useful tips. One of the things which they do, which I think actually you can do on any kind of podcast, which he talked about in that, was they batch record. So they take a day and they record 4 episodes. And I think that's probably about right. You may get 5, but I think to try and do more than that is... Having done days where I recorded 9 podcasts in a day once, and that was just horrific. For in some respects, it wasn't all the same podcast. It wasn't all e-commerce
It wasn't
podcast.
the same conversation, yeah.
No, it was like 3 or 4 different podcasts, and so it was kind of helpful, but it was hard going.
Yeah.
And so I can see why they would do 4 in a day. To actually batch record once a month, say, right, I'm going to get all this month's episodes done. Actually, I think is a really good way of doing it, unless you're doing something that is like so super topical.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That it has to be like, I've got to respond to the news today. Like,
Yeah.
I need to talk about what's topical at the moment. Well, we've got a new British government.
Yeah.
You had the debate between Trump and Biden. If we were doing something topical, I wouldn't batch those out now because you've no idea what's going to happen in the next 4 weeks. Will
Yeah.
Biden still be the Democrat? I don't know. It's all very exciting, isn't it? And so, but with e-commerce, things change a lot and they change quickly, but you could batch them out once a month and still be pretty relevant.
Yes,
Right?
even with AI topics.
Even with AI topics. But I was thinking about this yesterday. I was doing my little wander around the park, which I like to do in the mornings, thinking about life, love, and the universe. And I was thinking to myself, it'd be really interesting to do a podcast. And in my head, I called it different opinions or a different approach or something like that, where you had 3 or 4 people who had quite different viewpoints on the world. Do you know what I mean? And in my head, I had a certain friend of mine, and she has quite a different viewpoint in life and how you approach life, and I think it would just be really interesting to say, right, you get 3 or 4 different people around and you say, right, let's talk about politics. Who are you going to vote for and why? And have a friendly conversation amongst yourself. So you get 3 or 4 very widely different opinions, and there'll be some coming together on some things. But I thought something like that would be quite good fun. And I think, why not? If you're going to do something topical like that, get some different voices, some unique. I think the way John's done it is great because it's not like he's got a Democrat and a Republican. Maybe they are, I don't know. But it's not like they're diametrically opposed. It's like we've got 4 strands from this industry.
Yeah.
And experts in each part who can add to that conversation.
Complement each other in some sense too, right?
I think that works. But I also think the other end of the spectrum is true. So, you could have a person of faith and a person not of faith talking about cultural issues and what does that look like? And I think something like that would be really interesting.
It would be interesting.
To get the different sides of the conversation.
Yeah, I think personally I would like that for something that was a bit of a gray area.
a little
but
bit
if I
controversial.
was sure which one I liked, then
yeah,
like which side I was on, then not so much.
No, fair play. But I can see this style of podcast working in pretty much most industries.
Yeah.
I think the one thing you've got to have with whether you're co-hosting like we do, whether there's 2 people, whether there's 3, whether there's 4, the one thing you've got to have, I think, is the ability to get on with that person. I don't think you have to necessarily have crazy amounts of banter, but I think there has to be some kind of chemistry in that area.
Natural.
Yeah. You've got to be able to finish each other's
thoughts, sentences.
There you go. We obviously still need to practice.
I got there.
In the end. Just like British Rail. We get there eventually. But no, I think it's a good idea. I think, especially if you don't want to do the solo podcast or you need some help to sort of share what's going on, I think it's a really great thing. So, yeah, hats off to you, John, for doing that. And definitely check out his podcast and have a think about how you could make it work for you, and just run a few trials, run a few tests, see how it could work, see how it couldn't work. What's he going to talk about in the next 3 episodes? Is he carrying on the conversation about this or is it different things?
Yeah, it is a little bit about this and then he goes on to some other stuff as well.
Fantastic. Yeah. So definitely stay tuned if you want to find out more about the multi-person podcast. Or the panel podcast is probably a better way to put it. Multi-person?
Multi-person? No, I'm going to go with panel.
Yeah, I'm going to go with panel as well. Go with the panel podcast. So, if you're interested in that kind of idea, make sure you subscribe because we'll talk about it over the next few weeks. But anything else on this?
No, that's good.
That was short?
Yeah.
That was sweet.
Sweet.
Very much. John, you're a legend. Good to see you at Sub Summit, my friend. And thanks for the invite to Gas Monkey, by the way. It's great. But yeah, we will see you next week when we are talking to, well, I say you are talking to John again.
Yes, another one with John.
And do you know what you're talking about in that?
Yes.
What are we talking about?
More of the same.
In other words,
more insights.
Yeah, more insights. We don't actually know all the details of it all yet. But we'll find out in the next episode. So make sure you join us in that. Make sure you like and subscribe and do all of that good stuff with the podcast. Is there anything else we need to tell people to do?
No, that's good.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I think I've forgotten something.
Yeah, you have, but we'll get into it next time.
I probably messed it up somehow. No, very good. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's it from me. That's it from the wonderful Sadaf. Have a fantastic week wherever you are. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode at Podjunction. If you've enjoyed the insights from this episode and want to hear the full conversation with today's special guest, don't forget to visit podjunction.com, where you'll find more information about how you can join Podjunction cohort. Whether you listened while on the go or in a quiet moment, thank you for letting us be a part of your day. Remember, every episode is a chance to gain insights and to transform your business with podcasting. So keep on tuning in, keep on learning, and until next time, happy podcasting.